is 602-433-7000.
Yep.
And we'd like to thank Desert Financial Credit Union for sponsoring our KRIM Community Spotlight Program. Good morning, Rim Country. Chris Higgins in the studio, and it is Wednesday, July 3rd. Tomorrow is Independence Day, so I hope you guys are getting ready to celebrate. There's a lot of activities going on in Green Valley Park. They all start at 1 p.m. And if you haven't heard, there's going to be a flyover tomorrow between 6:30 and 6:40 p.m. for F-35s from the 56th Fighter Wing out of Luke Air Force Base are going to be flying over Payson. So definitely want to be out at that time to enjoy that flyover. So majestic. Well, in this the studio this morning is District 1 County Supervisor Steve Christensen. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you, and good morning to Rim Country. So tomorrow's the 4th of July.
It is.
248 years.
Nice.
I remember that I graduated high school in 1976.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, 240. I'm like, where are you going with this?
So I graduated 48 years ago. It was the bicentennial.
Nice.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to even believe it's been 48 years since then, but I guess.
I just remember as a child, I'm a little younger, but I was a younger child at that time in '76, and I remember the quarters. They were so cool, the bicentennial quarters with I think it had like some drummers, a drummer, flute player from the Civil War and carrying the flag, and the quarters were just so cool, and I collected them when I was younger.
Well, they had so much stuff, so it was just a celebration, really patriotic time. Amtrak did the something special there with red, white, and blue Amtrak. It was the Freedom Train or something, and it's my executive secretary rode on that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and was really able to ride on that. It was really neat.
That
she
is
said
cool.
so when she was younger too.
So 2 more years, then it will be the 250th.
250th. That should be a big deal.
That should be.
Yeah.
That's something worth celebrating. I mean, every year we celebrate, and it needs to be celebrated.
We do. We need to remember that we are a free people, and we declared it so by through God, through inalienable rights. And not the rights of a king or not the rights of a certain person or whatever, but God granted rights.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
So talking Gila County today, for those of you listening and watching on our KRIM Radio Facebook page, and I think the big news is the ribbon cutting that you had down in Tonto Basin for the
If you want to go to my Facebook page, Supervisor Steve Christensen, I've got a couple of photos there. But yeah, there's probably a lot of photos out there of the ribbon cutting June 22nd. So that was the final celebration ribbon cutting. People talked and had speeches, and there was probably a couple hundred people there. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
And so now that bridge is open. It'll be there for a long time.
Yes.
Providing safety and also a faster way for emergency personnel and stuff to cross the river.
Which is very important. I can think back, and a friend of ours, Randy Roberson, who, with his drone provided transport for medication across the river when, it was flooded out. Also, resident with the 5-ton, vehicle who would transport children to school, people to medical appointments.
It's hard to even imagine that, but that was the norm, and it's just hard to imagine putting your 7-year-old child on that big truck and having him wade across the river that's 3-4 feet deep.
Yeah.
It's enraging.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is going to be a lot better, a lot safer, a lot faster, and really, I think Tonto Basin's going to grow now as a result.
Oh yeah.
It's really a beautiful area.
It is, and I think a little warm for my taste.
Yeah, it's a little warm,
in the
but
summertime, but
I mean the mountains around there and the view.
It cools off at night. You know, it does cool down a little bit, and then in the wintertime, fall, winter, spring, beautiful. You have Roosevelt Lake right there.
Right, yeah. So if you're a lake enthusiast, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to be more rural, yet
Yeah.
near paved roads.
Yep.
It's great.
Well, it's half an hour or a little bit more, depending where you are in Tonto Basin to Payson, which isn't
Yep.
bad at all.
No, that's.
And yeah, so it is just a beautiful little area. But so many. Gila County. I know we've mentioned this and you've talked about this a few times. Gila County is a beautiful county.
Yeah, the best, I think. So there's other areas in the state that are beautiful, but Gila County has the diversity that is just really neat. We go from really literally alpine kind of conditions where you can find aspen trees and stuff up close to the top of the rim, and then all the way down into deserts, Sonoran Desert kind of thing. It's saguaro cactus. We have Indian ruins. We have recreation, water. We have a rich history here. A lot of history in Gila County.
Yep, all of the mining history in Globe, Young, beautiful little community. If you haven't been out to Young yet, you know, the road.
Go to Young.
Yeah, the road is a little bumpy at times. It depends. I think with rain, you know, it makes the washboards a little worse. But when you get into that Pleasant Valley, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and there's a lot to kind of do over there. Depending on what's going on at the time. So trying to hit it when they're having their pioneer days or they're having a rodeo or whatever. But there's also Bruzy Vineyard. There's a couple of restaurants over there.
Yep.
And it's a sleepy little place, but we're working on that road, trying to make that road safer and paved the whole way. That's going to require grants from the federal government because we're talking millions, but we have already received a little less than $500,000 to do all of the studies, surveys, and the NEPAs and all the different things that are required for figuring out whether or not the road meets all of the legal requirements, width-wise, curves, all the stuff.
Wow.
And then it becomes basically pavement ready.
Yes.
And so then we can seek that money. So we're seeking that right now.
That's great.
That's one of our priorities. The control road is also a priority. I don't know if it's number 2, but it's alongside as far as that kind of a priority. We're doing a couple of projects on the control road. Right now, I think they're actually working on the Tonto Village extension, which is about 4-mile extension of pavement. Forest Service is paying for that. And then the Whispering Pines, where you go into Whispering Pines from Houston Mesa Road, it's pavement all the way to what I call the T or the stop sign where you hit the actual 69 control road. And they're going to be doing pavement there for about 1 or 1.2 miles. And that's $2 million just to do that. And the Forest Service is paying for that. And so that'll help really reduce a lot of the dust and everything that the community gets because of the amount of traffic there. So we're kind of having to whittle away at it a little at a time.
And before I forget, have to mention also, talking about Gila County, Pine Strawberry. Just a beautiful, quaint little community, you know, north of Payson, northwest of Payson, and just another little gem.
Absolute gem, and like to keep it that way. Progress, if you want to call it that, as we move into the future, then people want to do different things and all of that. And so because it is in the county, it's not incorporated, then they don't have their own zoning or their own specific community, you know, zoning and restrictions.
Ordinances,
and so it becomes a countywide thing, and they have preferences. You know, I mean, they have put together a document that says this is what we would like, but it really doesn't have legal teeth. It's just like, well, we really would like to keep it this way or that way.
Yes.
But as it grows, it can change too. So they're faced up there with the challenge of saying, should we incorporate and become separate and then have our own council and then come up with some of our own ordinances as far as we don't want to have this kind of a store or that kind of a signage or this kind of a restaurant on our main corridor or something like that.
Yeah, and you know, there's always, with every decision, pros and cons.
Oh yeah.
Pros and cons to it, and you know, pros, you get control. You get control and you get to decide as a community what you do, your ordinances and growth and things like that. Cons, now you're responsible for your roads. You have to maintain them. Policing. They have the fire department as a fire district up there, so they have that already.
Right.
But,
and then you'd have to create an additional taxing
yep.
element so that you could pay for all of those things. So yeah,
Yes.
there's pros and cons. So I have talked to a lot of people in that area. They don't really want to incorporate. They feel that would be a negative, and that's fine. They just need to understand that that creates some vulnerability. We recently had an applicant, at least was looking at it, and that was the Dollar General company that was looking at putting something in there. That would be the second time they've thought about doing it, and but it was through different contractors at that time. So the previous applicants were not these, and so the issue comes down to if they purchase a piece of property that qualifies to that kind of a business, then they don't have to get a zoning change. If they don't have to get a zoning change, then they have the legal right to build that business.
Yes.
And so you can sign all the petitions in the world, it still puts the county in the legal obligation to issue permits for people, whether or not the people in the community want that or not. And so I think it's important, maybe not so much the type of business, but what it looks like. Like, let's say, for instance, and please don't think that this is happening, but let's say McDonald's wanted to build something on the main corridor in Pine. Well, I'm sure there'd be a lot of pushback. We don't want that, that's ugly, we don't want the golden arches. Well, let's say they purchased a piece of property, they gave them the legal right, and they said, we're doing it, we don't care if everybody hates us or not. And so then it would come, then that's where I would step in and say, would you be able to consider spending a little extra to make it look like it's appropriate in that area? And that's kind of about the only thing that the county can do. And so this Dollar General was willing to do that on their facade, but then I think they just, I don't believe they're pursuing that anymore. The particular property that they had is up for sale again, so I don't really know. So anyway, that's just some of the nuances of the county. A lot of folks don't really understand jurisdictions or what, you know, when we have something in the county, it is a county-wide ordinance, not just Pine.
Yes. So what would be great, and I think what you would recommend, you know, to people is to attend or watch the supervisor meetings. To get a better understanding of these decisions, the policies, just how things work in the county. And you brought up a very good point. It's county-wide, so the same policies that are applied outside of, well, say down in Gila, are applied in Pine and Strawberry.
And in Globe, Miami.
Well, outside of the municipalities. Outside of the municipalities where it is county, whether it's Southern Gila County, whether it's Young, whether it's Pine Strawberry, Gila, Tonto Basin, the same codes, ordinances, policies apply to all of those communities.
And that's why we're always looking at it, because each of those communities really has a different personality. And so what people want or don't want in Pine Strawberry could be vastly different than what somebody wants in Hayden or Winkleman or some other Young, you know. I mean, it's just different personality there. And so it's hard to kind of always have that, you know, and then feel like, well, one size fits all, but one size never fits all. So that's why the public is saying, well, why are we doing this, or can we change that, or can we tweak it, or whatever. And of course, the general public has a lot of power in that. They have the ability to come before the board and challenge an ordinance or something like that. We don't make laws. So the legislature makes laws. And so what we do is we create ordinances, regulations, all those things that are just to kind of help smooth through those processes. But all of those can be challenged and say, I don't agree with what you're doing. And just, you know, we can try and work through that.
And the state legislature makes laws that the county supervisors follow, the county follows, towns follow, cities
Yeah,
follow.
that we have to.
So, and we have to follow those, yeah, so, and that's really interesting. I don't think we've ever talked about that, but the challenge, because I know, just look at the town of Payson and the different opinions, and
Oh, yeah.
how people, you know, view things differently, and this is just a smaller town. And I know it's the same in Globe, and Hayden, Winkleman, you know, all of the municipalities, you know, anywhere you go, it's like that. But then you take a county, and especially a diverse county,
Yep.
like Gila County, where the county supervisors, you and the other two supervisors, and the county manager, James Medlove, and all your staff, you know, you're looking at ordinances and policies that, as you said, work for everyone in the county.
Right. And so it's a challenge if we want to create something new. And so there's two new things since I've been on there. There's the first one was wildlife feeding ordinance, and we did adopt that. And that really only applies mainly in the north up here,
Yes,
but
yeah.
it is a county-wide ordinance, where there was a lot of dangerous activity in the more densely populated areas of the forest, where people were outright feeding. So actually Game and Fish came to us and said, we don't have the power to really stop this. It's a really big deal to try and work it through the state. So we're trying to get county by county to adopt an ordinance that just says, hey, don't feed the wildlife. Don't feed elk, don't feed the javelina, don't feed, you know, they already had a bear ordinance, but that's about it. And don't feed the bears, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, what it's doing is it's drawing these animals into communities, and there was a lady killed in Kingman shortly after we adopted the ordinance. Now Kingman's not in our county, but that's the kind of thing. She was feeding an elk and the thing attacked her.
Wow.
So, you know, I mean, so please, they're not your pets, don't feed them.
Yeah.
And so then the second ordinance that we actually adopted, but we haven't really instituted it yet. We're still kind of feeling our way through it, is the short-term rental ordinance. And we're feeling our way through. There's a lot of acceptance to it. There's a lot of pushback to it. And so we're getting, we're having staff right now look at all the various nuances that were brought up. Look, that we feel this is a burden, we feel this is wrong, we feel this will stifle, we feel this is too much, or whatever, or not enough, or all those things. And so staff is reviewing it again, and they'll bring it back to us, and I don't even know when that's going to be.
Okay.
Sometime this fall probably, and then we'll look at it again, we'll determine whether or not that's what we want, and that's what we want to do. And so we have an argument from everything from we don't need it at all, forget it, don't do it,
Yes.
to yes, do it, make it harsher than you already have it. So we have all of that, you know. And so my premise was, so I say, well, what's going to be my position? Because I'm not going to please everybody. So my position is going to err on the side of our residents. Okay, so Gila County residents, people that live in our county, live in these communities that are negatively impacted by people running short-term rental businesses in the neighborhood, then I'm going to try and stick up for them without, hopefully, without harming the income and convenience of having these short-term rentals at the same time. We're not trying to get rid of short-term rentals. We're not trying to, you know, I've been accused of, well, we're doing this in order to create more long-term rentals. Well, that's not even a motive. It's never been a motive. We're not trying to change the dynamic of it. We're just trying to control it. We want to know who these people are. We want to have a permit that they're going to have to get, a database, and all of that. And you say, well, what's the difference between short-term and long-term? Well, a long-term rental, if you have a problem with that renter, you get to know that renter. So the sheriff's department's called, okay, we got a problem in the neighborhood, and then next month it's the same person, the same, and all of that. You can deal with that. But when the people that are renting change out every single weekend, you have to go after the owners, not the renters, because you have a noise problem or a bonfire problem. You go in, there's 15 people at the residence. Who are you going to cite? And then they're gone 3 days later or 2 days later, whatever. So we have to go after the owners and say, you have to police your property better than this, or
Yeah.
we're gonna pull your permit for short term.
Yeah,
And-
and it's, you know, it's interesting when you say the residents and, you know, stick up for the residents. Well, there are some residents that own short-term rentals.
Yes,
And they're your constituent as well, and they're saying, hey, you know, you're making this too hard, this is unreasonable, and
Yeah.
you're stifling our income. And then there's local business owners that are also residents, that are your constituents, that say, hey, these short-term rentals provide us customers, and without them, we don't do as well in our business. And we're residents, we're, you know,
Right.
you need to listen to us too. So it's balancing all of that and understanding and looking at all of that. And like you said, that's what staff, you know, and the supervisors, they try and get all that information to make the best decision.
Right.
Yeah.
and so I kind of swing back and forth in the tree there a little bit from saying, well, maybe we should just forget about the whole ordinance. But I don't think that it's fair to do that to
No.
those that are saying, no, it really is something that we need to look at and have. We just don't want it to be oppressive. And
Yeah.
so, as you probably know, sometimes people really exaggerate a situation, or they project that it's going to happen, this is going to happen, or that's going to happen, because you're just going to destroy all short-term rentals. We're not doing anything like that. That is not our intent. We're not trying to do that. I've actually looked up a lot of the other short-term rentals throughout the nation. When it comes to harshness, we're not at all even close to that.
Yeah.
There are some places that are just brutal toward short-term rental
Yeah.
owners.
Yeah.
And so, no, we're not, we want that economy. We want people coming up and
Yeah.
staying in our community. They do spend money. We just don't want them out there on their ATVs doing donuts all day on a
Yeah.
dirt road in front of
Yeah.
somebody else's house.
Yep, and being disrespectful and a nuisance to the residents that live there every day.
Right,
Yeah.
loud music,
Yeah.
whatever it is, big parties, yeah. And then the next weekend, you don't know what you're gonna get the next weekend.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Well, and what I appreciate, you know, what you guys are doing are making a decision, and like you said, it hasn't been brought back to the supervisors yet, but you make a decision, and I feel like that's why you're elected, that's why, you know, people are elected into those positions to make decisions, not to just keep pushing it off, pushing it off,
Right.
pushing it off, pushing it off. You want to do your due diligence, do research, try and listen to all the parties involved, but at the end of the day, you have to make a decision.
you have to make a decision, and that is part of the job, and you're not gonna please everyone, but I do really wanna serve the people. It's not self-serving at all,
No.
what we're doing in this case. So we will be looking at that again. We just got done looking at really the budget for
okay.
Gila County. We've got the tentative one. We'll probably be voting on the permanent one here very shortly. But the tentative one is basically the permanent one coming up. So we have adjusted the budget from 170 million down to 140 some million. And that's because of the projected spending of grant monies and things like that. So when you look at the bridge that we just completed, we don't have to have that in our budget any longer.
That was in last year's.
It was in
budget.
last year's budget. So when we remove the spending involved with just that one project, it reduces the budget. So one thing people don't really understand a lot about municipal and governmental budgets is, in order for that agency, that government to spend money, it has to be in the budget to spend. And so if you don't have it in there and you receive money from, say, a grant or something, you can't spend it, because it messes with all kinds of things like the limits that you can spend, all these different things. I mean, it's very complicated. I really admire our finances people. That it's so complicated how they do that, and how they have these budget expenditure limits, and they have this, but this doesn't qualify, this does qualify. And so even though our budget's 140 some million dollars, we're not going to even come close to spending that kind of money. We just anticipate if there is something that comes in, we want to have it in the budget.
Yes.
We're probably going to spend maybe around 60 to 70% of that. I mean, and we don't even know because you just have to work your way through the year.
Yes. Yeah.
And so as people apply for grants, and I mean, everybody does. The Sheriff's Department, our Public Works Department, they all apply for grants. We approve those applications. If that money comes in, that has to be in our budget.
Yes.
Or we can't distribute the money to the Sheriff's Department or whoever asks for it. And so that's why it's in there. And that's why the budgets are where they are, but we never spend that much.
Yes. No, I think that is something that some people don't understand, that expenditure limitation, where there needs to, all of those items, grants, just potential funding that a municipality or a county, a government can receive has to be in that budget, or as you said, what a travesty. You receive that grant and you can't spend it and possibly lose it.
Or lose it, yeah. And so you never want to lose a grant. So
Yeah.
we're operating on about 3.5% private property in Gila County in general. So as you are taxed on your property, we do receive that money. It's a 4.19% from the county. Other municipalities and districts and stuff do charge on top of that. So the county receives 4.19%. That's been the same for the last 13, 15 years, something like that. That's not changing. Your assessed value may go up. That's going to change. We anticipate a $1.2 million increase in assessed value that we're going to capture. We're using that for pay raises. So we're giving everyone approximately 3% or 4%, some cases 7% pay raise. Okay, and is that enough? Is it keeping up with inflation? Well, barely, but that's all we can afford to do, because if we give them more than we can sustain, then we got a problem next year or the year after that. Well, we overcommitted, so we got to be very conservative that way. And so another thing that people ask about, or they say, well, you're not transparent enough. You know, that's a very common thing, is transparency. Well, government cannot really anymore in any way really operate in the dark behind closed doors like we're accused of. Transparency's out there. The only meetings, all of our meetings are transparent. All of the minutes, we film it, you can watch it. If you're not paying attention and something comes along, then you can say, well, where did this come from? Right out of the blue, they must have been talking about this in the back room. And we weren't. We've been talking about it for months or whatever. And so, you know, if you do want to get involved, make sure you watch the meetings. There's a couple ways of doing that. You can be in Glow at the Board of Supervisors. You can come to the Tommy Klein Martin building here in Payson and watch on a big television and participate in public comments if you want there.
Yes.
And there's also a link on YouTube. So
yeah, a few different ways.
Yeah, there's many ways to do that. And then there's also those archives, so you can watch again and stuff like that. So
you don't have to know a secret handshake to have access
no
to
secret. There's no secrets. And what's funny too is that the Board of Supervisors, which consists of 3 members, I mean, we can't all just go out and have coffee with each other and talk about stuff. We can't do that because the fact that we only have 3 members, if any 2 are together at a time, then that forms a quorum. And so we're able to talk about a lot of stuff at our meetings. I mean, because that's publicly announced, and that's where we do our discussions. But other than that, I can't make phone calls, text, write letters, and, you know, even ask my assistant to ask another supervisor something and get back with me. You know, it's just open meeting law stuff. And so it creates a little bit of a more difficulty in communicating, but it actually is not that big of a burden. You know, but we have to be careful that we obey the law.
Yes.
That way, because otherwise people say, oh, you guys have been meeting and talking about stuff in secret, and you know, we don't do that.
No. Well, hey, 10:30, so
wow.
I know, goes quick. It's always great though to talk about the county and
the
all. The
county is in great shape.
Yeah.
We're in great shape financially. We have reserves. We are steady. We're not having to do anything with our property tax stuff. So I'm very happy. We have good management when it comes to all of our departments and finances. Do we have enough? No, never. Never enough to do everything, but we're doing great.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Steve, for coming on this morning and sharing.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching this morning. Hope you, again, have a wonderful Independence Day tomorrow and a great weekend. Stay safe, and God bless America.
God bless
Hey,
America.
time to get back to the music with some Aretha Franklin, Allman Brothers Band, and more. But first, let's get a quick update from the National Weather Service.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, you are so welcome. I'm going to go here.